Alrighty, folks. So now we're going to start talking about what this class is really going to focus on. What is rangeland? And rangeland is defined as any land that is uncultivated and dominated by native plants. And native plants can be in the form of grasses, grass-like plants, forbs, or shrubs. So, in addition, rangeland is going to be all land that is not farmland. It's not intensively farmed, not intensively cultivated, no irrigation. So, this can also include areas that are not dense forests, barren desert, or land covered by solid rock, concrete, or glaciers. Those are all things that are not rangeland. There's approximately 47% of the Earth's total surface that is rangeland, so really it's quite high. So that's why one of the big reasons that grazing animals are being utilized to maintain this rangeland is because there's such a big percentage of it, but it's also a large percentage of land that cannot actually be farmed. So part of the Earth's surface, about a quarter of the Earth's surface, is classified as really dense forest land. 10% is cropland, which is just amazing to me. That and we have a lot of that in California, but we're able to feed a population of almost 7 billion with 10% of the cropland. And then 3% is urban. I actually think that number is a little off now. And then the other 15% of the rest of the Earth's surface is really made up of ice, rock, and barren desert. So again, 47% of the Earth is going to be rangeland. When we look at rangeland specifically in the U.S., about 36% of the total acreage in the U.S. is classified as rangeland. And most of that 36% actually occurs in the western states. So 53% of the total rangeland is going to be in the western states, from North Dakota clear to Texas west. And then in California, our percentage of rangeland is approximately 41 million acres. And that number varies just a little bit depending on what statistic you're using. So rangeland in California really is kind of broke up like this. Where we have areas in green, those are going to be rangeland, but privately owned rangeland. So a lot of that area is going to be the coastal mountains, and then and then the foothills surrounding the Central Valley. And then developed land is going to be our metropolitan areas. So a lot of the Bay, a lot of Sacramento, and a lot of LA. And then the prime farmland is going to be this lighter yellow color right through the heart of the Central Valley. And then other land is going to be in this kind of off yellow type color. And this is going to be a lot of federal land. So this is going to be primarily Forest Service. This is actually 6 Rivers Forest Service right through here. And then a lot of BLM land once you get on the other side of the Sierra Nevada mountains. So this is going to be a lot of BLM land through here. So of these states, Nevada actually is going to be the one that is going to have the highest percentage of land that is classified as rangeland. So 80% of Nevada is actually classified as rangeland, and a lot of that rangeland is going to be not only classified as rangeland, but a lot of it's going to be federal. So BLM, Department of Defense, National Park Service, a little bit of U.S. forested land. So other states that we see pretty high percentages in are going to be Wyoming. They're going to be 75%. Rangeland, Texas is 54% rangeland, and Montana is 57%. The interesting part about Texas is that even though 54% of that state is rangeland, only 3% of the total acreage in Texas is federally owned. So they have a lot of private rangeland in Texas, which makes management a lot different. So rangeland is classified in one respect by the amount of precipitation that it receives on an annual basis. So this is a precipitation map in areas that receive a lot of precipitation, like the East Coast. Those are going to be in green. They get upwards of 80 to 100 inches per year. And as you move west, you can see that you actually get into really low annual precipitation areas. So, and that's why a lot of this rangeland that we're going to be talking about occurs in the western part of the U.S., and that is because this area gets only between 8 to 28 inches of rainfall per year. And then areas down like Southern California, Brawley area, that isn't classified as rangeland either in most respects because they actually receive less than 5 inches of rainfall per year. So when we look at a global basis, we can see the different types of land, and clear from rocks and ice up here in Greenland to to shrublands. We have quite a bit through the U.S. There's quite a bit through Israel, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Iran. And then our grasslands are going to be this yellow color. We can see we have a lot of grasslands through Central Asia, a lot of grasslands through the mid part of the U.S. as well. And then the dark green is going to be woodland savanna areas. And then there's going to be desert areas as well. So as you can see, this almost camo brown color, we have quite a bit of desert area in the U.S. You see a really large percentage of North Africa that is going to be classified as desert. And then Australia is unique because Australia is nearly all classified as rangeland. So different types. So they have shrublands, they've got grasslands, they've got deserts, and they've got woodland and savanna tundras. So rangelands are really home to a lot of different animals, and that's in the form of domestic animals as well as wildlife species. So rangelands are going to provide habitat for mammals, birds, amphibians, fish, and insects. So just to give you a few brief statistics, of all of the mammals that exist in the U.S., 84% are actually found on rangeland. 74% of the birds are found on rangeland, 58% of the amphibians, and then only 38% of the fish are found on rangeland. And that's because we have a lot of ocean and a lot of fish species that are going to find their home in the ocean that don't necessarily or that you're not going to see on rangeland. So now that you have a really good understanding of what rangeland management is, let's talk about, or what range is, let's talk about rangeland management. So this, in a very loose definition, is the use and the stewardship of rangeland resources to meet goals and desires of humans. So that rangeland itself has to be managed. So I'm going to take you guys through the history of rangeland and development of rangeland, especially through the late 1800s, early 1900s. And we're going to experience a really kind of a sad case of how rangeland was abused. And now we're trying to actually fix our problem. So it's taking a very long time to undo the damage that was done during the late 1800s. So that's a really good segue into talking about the condition of rangeland. So we often get asked if the ecological condition of rangelands is better or worse than it was 50 years ago, and the short answer is there's twice as much land that is classified as good, and there's half as much land that is classified as poor. So yes, our rangeland management techniques are working. So you can see that these classifications of condition. These are going to be BLM classifications. So rangeland can either be an excellent, good, fair, or poor condition. And you can see in 1936 that we had a high number of rangeland acres that were in poor condition. And as we get through the late 80s, you can see that we have transitioned that so that we have 30% of the acres of rangeland are now in good condition. So approximately 65% of the rangeland is actually grazed by livestock, and this is going to be on a global basis. So in addition to just the rangeland, livestock is going to graze about 5% of the croplands, and then about 13% of the forest land is actually available for grazing as well. All right, so that gives you a good introduction to rangeland and a few statistics. So we'll get into what rangelands provide in the next lecture.